welcome to the Prince Magnum channel where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to the mini-series here on In Your Face called Men of Action. If you've kept up with this series, one, you'll notice that I'm wearing the same shirt that I was in the last one. That's because I'm filming all of this on the same day. Number two, this series is all about, guys actually taking action to help law enforcement, to help someone in need, whether it's a friend, family, or even a stranger, and doing the right thing and not picking up their cellular device and doing this only. Okay? I can understand if you're doing this to help the police, but most of you are just going to post it on social media, which makes you, well, not a man of action. In the last video, we talked about my first solo independent investigation, cracked the case, but nothing got done. And this was, it was a win-loss, I guess you could say. We won because we were right, but we still lost because law enforcement didn't do anything. So continuing with that theme, my second investigation. A friend of mine that I've known since high school. We've lost contact, but when we get caught up, we get caught up. And she's a very wonderful woman. As a matter of fact, she's one of those ones that we actually have said that if both of us were single at the same time, there'd probably be nothing stopping us, even this much time into the future. Matter of fact, her best friend was, if you will, was my fiance and the mother of my first two children. Okay, so that's how I know her, if you will. Turning back the clock, at this time I'm about 23 years old. Okay, give or take. You got to remember, it's been like 20 years ago. It's been over 20 years ago. Details, specific times. I can tell you the weather was warm. This friend of mine gets with a guy, and it seems like it's going to be wonderful. It looks like he's treating her good. But, like a lot of stories like that, you don't always know what goes on behind closed doors. As time goes on, she's being cut off more and more from family, friends, and that sort of thing. And at this time, she's also pregnant. All of that now being said, the day comes when we just don't know what's happened to her. Can't get in touch with her. Don't have a clue. Okay. A little time passes, and we get a phone call. Actually, it wasn't a cell phone. We got a phone call on this. Tells you it's been a minute ago. We got a call on our landline. She had broken up with that guy. Basically, had to pull a full, freaking escape, and she had to go back to her parents, all the way down in Ironton. She goes back to her parents, and looks like things are going to be okay. But then she calls up, says, I keep getting sick when I take this multivitamin that the doctor said would be perfectly fine as a prenatal. And all it was just Flintstones chewables, okay? She says, it looks like water's gotten to it, but every time I take it, I get sick, my blood sugar drops, I feel weird. There's something going on. And I think my medicine, my multivitamins have been tampered with. And okay, are you sure? Maybe you got them wet or something. She's like, no, I'm pretty sure that I would remember something like that. She said, but that it is possible, but that doesn't explain why I get sick every time I take them. And I, first question I asked, well, then was, have you been diagnosed with gestational diabetes? She says no. Okay. You're not diabetic. You don't have gestational diabetes. Something's going on. she asked, would I take a look at that medication? Now, by this time, I am strictly just working the medical field. I'm a certified nurse's aide, certified med tech, insulin certification. Along with that, I already have now 2 criminal investigations under my belt. In both instances, cracked the case. I've got a 100% success ratio, 2 for 2, right? Obviously, I know something. I'll be able to figure out something, or at least throw enough of a warning signal up so maybe law enforcement can look into it deeper. So I said, yeah, we'll come over, we'll take a look at it. We go over, and my then fiance, they're chatting it up. I'm examining the medication. Now, at first, the first glance, these Flintstones chewables, these Flintstone chewables are, they just look like they were wet. They had gotten wet. Had kind of like, if you've ever seen a chewable kind of get wet, it's got kind of like this chalky look to it, and there'll be residue in the bottle, and just things like that. But something was off about them. There was this unusual scent, and I couldn't put my finger on it at first. I kept examining the medication, kept, studying. I was probably studying those multivitamins close to a half hour, because there was something to this, okay? And as I'm doing this, are you sure you've not been diagnosed with gestational diabetes? No. What were your symptoms like? Well, it looked like this. And she described exactly like a diabetic, having, their blood sugar dropping. And I said, you're not diabetic, but yet you're having diabetic reactions. And, still examining. Finally, I get to this, I just picked up, I guess, just the right one that got in the concentration of what it was that had been put on these Flintstones chewables. It was a hint of humulin R. And at that time, there was no Novulin yet. Well, we were starting to see it, but, the humulin was still more common. And the humulin R, if you've ever kind of smelled it, has kind of like a metallic smell. The best way I can describe it, and this comes from working on cars, like Project Spirit here, and those of you who've worked around old cars will know exactly what I'm talking about, had this almost like exposed wet steel smell. If you've ever had steel there's no paint or anything like that on it, and it gets wet, it has this kind of metallic smell. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's the best way I know how to describe it. It literally, or like wet nails. Wet nails would be a good, another way of kind of describing it. And that's what it smelled like. That's what this one pill smelled like. And I was like, oh my, wow. And instantly everyone's like, what did you find? I said, I just smelled something very, very unusual. I said, is there anyone in that household that had access to insulin? And my friend says, well, yeah, his mom did. She lived in that house too, and she had access to insulin. She worked in a home health care setting, so she had access to patients, her clients' insulin. And I said, well. I said, I just smelled humulin R on this. Like, you can smell that? I said, yeah, it has a distinct smell. And I kind of explained it to him, just kind of like I explained to you guys. And I said, you need to take these over to the lab and have the police, take this to the police department, have them send it to a crime lab and have them tested. I'm 95% sure that there's going to be humulin R on it. So the next day, that's exactly what my friend does. She takes, those Flintstones vitamins directly over to the police station, and they send it off to a lab. Sure enough, the lab found humulin R all over those Flintstones vitamins. of all the things. They found it all over those Flintstone vitamins. So here's what we were able to surmise. The now ex-boyfriend did not want to be a father. He didn't want to be tied down to my friend. And him and his mom got the idea of taking my friend out along with the unborn child in an attempt to basically rid himself of kind of how this worked. So it was an attempted red rum case, if you will, an attempted murder case. So information in hand, presented to the police department where all of this happened, Farmington, Missouri. The police looked at the information, said, yep, this is absolutely right. But guess what we're not going to do? We're not going to do a damn thing about it. Okay? Yeah, all the information points right at him, but because it wasn't their investigation, they weren't going to do anything about it. Okay? Information was there. Everything showed this dirty, rotten SOB was very much guilty. Him and his mom. It should be now, they should be standing in front of a judge getting ready to look at however many years at that time. Police did nothing. Police did nothing. Okay? Should we be surprised? This seems to be a common theme by this point, isn't it? Two independent investigation cases, cracked 2 of them, and in both instances, the police did nothing. Okay? I wish there was a happy ending to this, except there was. Yeah, I got, I'm now 3 for 3 on this, on this, and along with that, saved a friend from taking something that had been poisoned, that sort of thing. And for those that do not know, non-diabetic people taking insulin is deadly. Okay, for those that do not know, but the biggest win, the baby came out healthy, and the last time I seen her, that baby, she is now pretty much a full-grown woman, and yeah, she is a full-grown woman. She's about 23, and just as beautiful as you could ever ask any child to be. Just a beautiful young lady, and smart, intelligent. So never mind all the other stuff. In the end, the real justice was that she came out okay. That wonderful child came out okay. And that's a victory I'll take any day. Unfortunately, this being one of the last independent investigations I did back then, that was tough. Been on 3 cases. One of them did go to trial, but it was people that were positioned just right. The ones where I stepped in, tried to do the right thing, nothing got done, even though I was right. Yeah, that's still a win in itself, but this kind of soured me very quickly. So, after that, I had said I would no longer do independent investigations because the police wouldn't do anything. Well, funny thing about that, never say never. Because here I am doing it all over again. From here, we're going to talk, in the next couple of videos, we are going to talk about some very interesting stories where they weren't investigations, but it was basically me charging into potentially dangerous situations to help someone I may not know or to help my community. So be looking for those videos. From that point, the only other thing I have to say, you guys know about Teespring, you know about Patreon. I'm not going to go over it again because this video's already had 4 takes. But beyond that scope, folks, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is, just do something with yourselves. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind go together like oil and water. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet, do something special for them today. And as always, for every last one of you out there, if no one out there has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
He kissed my mom at the door. Baby, lock up when I'm gone. Coffee.